Welcome to Global Watch. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. For decades, the US-Canada relationship has been held up as a model of stability and cooperation, two neighbors bound by shared values, deep economic ties, and a famously peaceful border. But now, that sense of security has been shattered, and the world is watching as a new crisis unfolds. On November 6, 2025, a trade dispute erupted after President Trump imposed sweeping protectionist tariffs on Canadian goods. What began as a political maneuver to protect American industries has spiraled into a full-blown international incident, escalating far beyond what anyone in Washington or Ottawa could have predicted. But this crisis isn't just about tariffs and trade. In a bold and controversial move, Ontario's Premier Doug Ford has weaponized the province's electricity exports, threatening to cut off power to key American states. Suddenly, the dispute isn't just about economics, it's about energy, security, and the daily lives of millions. The world's attention is now fixed on Ontario, as it targets American states that rely heavily on its power. What started as a national disagreement has become a deeply personal cross-border fight, with ordinary people caught in the middle. In cities and towns across New York, Michigan, and Minnesota, American families are suddenly facing skyrocketing electricity bills. The uncertainty is growing, and people are left wondering how long they can afford to keep the lights on. Even more alarming is the looming threat of blackouts. As the dispute drags on, the possibility of widespread power outages becomes very real, leaving communities vulnerable and anxious. Ford's move is unprecedented, a provincial leader directly challenging the might of a global superpower. His actions have sparked protests, fierce debates, and a wave of uncertainty on both sides of the border. The stakes could not be higher. Millions of people, families, workers, and businesses are now caught in the crossfire, their futures hanging in the balance as leaders on both sides dig in. The choices made in the coming days and weeks will define the future of US-Canada relations for years to come. Trust, cooperation, and decades of partnership are all on the line. This is a story about power, political, economic, and electrical. It's about how quickly alliances can fracture, and how the actions of a few can impact millions. The consequences are real, the risks are enormous, and as the world holds its breath, everyone is waiting to see what happens next. For over a century, the US and Canada have shared more than a border. They've built a deeply intertwined economic partnership. Canadian hydroelectricity has powered American homes and industries for decades, creating mutual prosperity. Agreements like NAFTA and USMCA formalized this cooperation, eliminating barriers and fostering trust. But the rise of America First politics under Trump shifted the landscape, turning partnership into rivalry. Tariffs and threats replaced negotiation, exposing vulnerabilities in the once stable relationship. The energy sector, once a symbol of unity, is now a pressure point. What was once a source of strength has become a weapon in a new era of economic confrontation. On March 4, 2025, the Trump administration imposed sweeping tariffs, 25% on most Canadian goods, and a targeted 10% on Canadian energy. The move was justified as a matter of national security and drug enforcement, but it was a clear economic attack. Canada, led by Prime Minister Trudeau, responded with retaliatory tariffs on $30 billion of US goods, threatening to escalate further. But while Ottawa played by the traditional rules, Ontario's Premier Doug Ford prepared a more direct response. Ford saw the energy tariff as a direct assault and decided to strike back where it would hurt most: electricity. This was no longer a slow-moving trade war. It was about to become personal for millions of Americans. The stage was set for a dramatic escalation. Premier Doug Ford stunned both nations by launching Ontario's own targeted retaliation. This move was unexpected and sent shockwaves through political circles in both Canada and the United States. Instead of broad tariffs, Ford aimed directly at New York, Michigan, and Minnesota, states heavily reliant on Ontario's electricity. This strategic targeting was designed to hit where it hurt the most, leveraging Ontario's energy exports as a powerful bargaining chip. In fiery press conferences, Ford blamed President Trump, urging Americans to pressure their leader. He didn't hold back, accusing the US administration of unfair trade practices and calling for immediate action from American citizens. A tariff on Canada is a tax on Americans, he declared, calling for US citizens to speak out. Ford's rhetoric was designed to resonate with the American public, making it clear that the tariffs would have direct consequences for them. Ford's threats grew bolder. "I will do everything, including cut off their energy with a smile on my face." His assertive stance was both a warning and a promise, showcasing his willingness to take drastic measures. He encouraged other provinces to join, seeking a united Canadian front. Ford's call for solidarity aimed to strengthen Canada's position, making it clear that this was not just Ontario's fight, but a national issue. Ford's actions blurred the lines between provincial and federal power, transforming a national dispute into a multi-front conflict. This unprecedented move raised questions about the balance of power within Canada. Never before had a provincial leader wielded such international leverage. Ford's bold strategy put Ontario on the global stage, making it a key player in international trade discussions. The world wondered, would Ford follow through on his threat? The uncertainty created a tense atmosphere, with everyone waiting to see the next move. The balance of power had shifted, and the stakes had never been higher. The entire situation was a high-stakes game of political chess, with Ford making bold moves that could change the landscape of international relations. Ford's threats quickly became reality. Ontario imposed a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to New York, Michigan, and Minnesota, effective mid-March. For American families and businesses, this meant an immediate $100 monthly increase in energy bills. But the real threat was Ford's deadline. If U.S. tariffs stayed into April, Ontario would cut off power entirely. The prospect of blackouts sent shockwaves through affected states, as utility companies scrambled for alternatives. Ford's strategy was surgical, targeting specific states to maximize political pressure on Washington. He bypassed the White House, appealing directly to state lawmakers. "Convince your president before your lights go out." The ethics of weaponizing energy were hotly debated, but the message was clear. Ontario was willing to cross lines never crossed before. The threat of darkness was now a powerful bargaining chip. The economic pain was immediate and widespread. In the U.S., families and businesses in the targeted states faced soaring costs and the looming threat of blackouts. For many, the extra $100 a month was a serious burden. For businesses, it threatened jobs and survival. Utility companies raced to find new power sources, but options were limited. Meanwhile, Canada wasn't immune. U.S. tariffs hit key Canadian industries, and the risk of losing the American energy market loomed large. Economists warned that a prolonged conflict could tip Canada into recession and damage both economies for years. The cycle of retaliation threatened to spiral out of control, with each side suffering more. The human cost was undeniable. Ordinary people caught in a political crossfire. The longer the standoff continued, the greater the risk of lasting damage. Ford's retaliation didn't stop at electricity. Ontario banned U.S. companies from bidding on new provincial infrastructure projects, shutting out billions in potential contracts. The move hurt American firms and rallied Canadian support for an Ontario-first approach. Ford also canceled a $100 million contract with Starlink, sending a message to U.S. tech giants. Even American alcohol disappeared from Ontario shelves, a symbolic but highly visible gesture. These actions broadened the economic battlefield, targeting U.S. interests beyond energy. The message Ontario was willing to endure pain to make its point. The trade war was now felt in boardrooms, construction sites, and liquor stores alike. The dispute quickly escalated into a complex chess match, with every move scrutinized by both domestic and international audiences. Each side weighed their options carefully, knowing that a single misstep could have far-reaching consequences for millions of people and billions of dollars in trade. The stakes were higher than ever, and the world was watching to see who would blink first. At the center of this storm stood Doug Ford, an unusual figure to find in the spotlight of international diplomacy, especially for a provincial leader. Yet Ford seized the moment, determined to defend Ontario's interests on the global stage. By engaging directly with U.S. state lawmakers and forging new relationships across the border, Ford bypassed traditional diplomatic channels. His bold approach caught many by surprise, but it also gave Ontario a unique seat at the negotiating table. Ford built a coalition of the aggrieved, rallying not just Ontarians, but also other provinces and American partners who felt threatened by the new tariffs. This growing alliance increased pressure on President Trump, forcing the White House to reconsider its strategy. But Ford's assertive tactics risked undermining Canada's federal government, raising questions about who truly spoke for the nation in times of crisis. Some warned that this could set a dangerous precedent for provincial autonomy, potentially fracturing the country's united front in future disputes. Trudeau's government was forced to walk a diplomatic tightrope, publicly supporting Ontario's position to maintain unity, while quietly managing the fallout with Washington and other provinces behind closed doors. Experts cautioned that Ford's greatest leverage was as a threat, not an action. The mere possibility of cutting power to the U.S. was enough to send shockwaves through American industry and politics. But, if Ontario actually followed through, the consequences could be catastrophic, provoking devastating U.S. retaliation and plunging both economies into deeper crisis. Meanwhile, President Trump faced his own dilemma. He could back down and risk appearing weak to his supporters and rivals alike, or he could hold firm and let Americans suffer the consequences of blackouts and economic disruption. In the end, the most likely outcome was a face-saving compromise. Tariffs eased, surcharges dropped, and both sides able to claim victory to their respective audiences. As the world's media covered every twist and turn, the international community watched anxiously, aware that the outcome would set a precedent for future cross-border disputes. With the April deadline looming, tensions ran high. Everyone hoped for de-escalation before time ran out, but uncertainty lingered in the air. The next move on this geopolitical chessboard could decide the fate of North American trade for years to come. This crisis is a stark reminder of how fragile global cooperation can be. What began as a policy decision in Washington now threatens millions of lives and decades of trust. The human cost is real. Families facing higher bills, workers fearing for their jobs, and leaders gambling with prosperity. Ford's bold tactics set a dangerous precedent, weaponizing essential resources and blurring lines of authority. In a world needing more cooperation, this dispute shows how quickly nationalism can unravel it. The coming weeks are critical. Only compromise and diplomacy can prevent disaster. The lesson is clear. International trade isn't abstract. It shapes our daily lives. As citizens, we must stay informed and demand leadership that builds bridges, not walls.